Hello, dear listener, and welcome to this quiet space, where we can gently explore the intricate workings of the mind as you drift towards slumber. Tonight, we will turn our attention to a concept that underpins so much of our daily experience, yet often remains unseen, a subtle sculptor of our thoughts and feelings. We speak of association. Imagine, if you will, the vast, silent landscape of your own mind. Within this landscape, countless connections are constantly being forged, strengthened, or sometimes softly fading away. Association, in the realm of psychology, refers to precisely these mental connections, delicate yet powerful links that form between various concepts, between events that unfold in our lives, or even between different mental states. These profound connections, more often than not, bloom from our specific, lived experiences, painting the canvas of our consciousness with unique hues. Throughout the rich tapestry of psychological thought, the concept of association weaves its way through many different schools. From the practical observations of behaviorism, which focuses on observable actions, to the deeper inquiries of associationism, which specifically studies these links, and even into the profound depths of psychoanalysis, where hidden connections often hold the key to understanding our inner worlds. It surfaces in the ways we interact with one another in social psychology, shaping our perceptions and reactions, and it forms a fundamental building block in structuralism, which seeks to understand the elementary structures of the mind. The roots of this profound idea reach back into the mists of antiquity, finding its first whispers in the thoughtful inquiries of ancient philosophers like Plato and Aristotle. Imagine these great thinkers, in quiet contemplation, observing the flow of their own thoughts, noticing how one memory gently yet inexorably led to another. They pondered the very succession of memories, how a particular image or feeling could spontaneously evoke a chain of related recollections, like ripples spreading across a tranquil pond. Their insights laid the groundwork, recognizing that our mental life is not a collection of isolated fragments, but rather a beautifully interconnected web. This timeless understanding was then carried forward, nurtured and expanded by a lineage of brilliant philosophers, illuminating the path for psychology as we know it today. Think of John Locke, envisioning the mind as a tabula rasa, a blank slate upon which experience writes, forming associations as it does. David Hume followed, exploring how ideas become linked by contiguity, resemblance, and cause and effect, weaving the very fabric of our understanding. Then came David Hartley, who delved into the neurological underpinnings, suggesting that these mental associations had physical correlates in the brain, a truly groundbreaking notion for his time. And James Mill, systematically dissecting the mind into its simplest elements, and showing how complex ideas arise from the association of simpler ones. These thinkers, through their meticulous observations and deep philosophical inquiries, painstakingly mapped out the principles by which our minds create these internal bridges. In our modern understanding of psychology, this ancient concept of association finds a very tangible and critical place. It is fundamental to how we comprehend memory, explaining why certain smells can transport us instantly to a childhood moment, or why a particular song can unlock a flood of emotions associated with a past event. It is the very bedrock of learning, from the simplest tasks to the most complex skills, enabling us to connect new information with existing knowledge. And perhaps most fascinatingly, it is deeply intertwined with the study of neural pathways within the brain itself, suggesting that these abstract mental connections have concrete, physical manifestations, silent electrical impulses tracing familiar routes, strengthening with each repeated association, like well-worn paths through a quiet forest. Let us now turn our gaze to the fascinating realm of learned associations. This is where the magic truly unfolds, where subjects, be they humans or other creatures, begin to create relationships, not just between existing concepts, but actively forming new links. These relationships can be between different types of stimuli, such as an auditory cue becoming linked to a visual one, or between a particular behavior and an original stimulus that triggers it. Consider, for a moment, the nature of these stimuli. The more concrete the items, the more vivid and tangible they are. A specific scent, a vibrant color, the texture of velvet, the sound of rain on a windowpane, the more likely they are to evoke rich sensory images within your mind. And these sensory images, in turn, can function as powerful mediators of associative learning and memory. They act like anchors, firmly mooring new information to something deeply felt and experienced, making the association more robust and easier to recall. The ability to continually learn new information, to forge these fresh connections, is not merely a cognitive exercise, it is truly essential to our daily lives. It allows us to adapt, to grow, to navigate an ever-changing world. It is, in essence, a critical component of healthy aging, enabling us to maintain our cognitive vitality and engage meaningfully with our surroundings. And yet, it is a well-documented reality that as we gracefully age, there can be a natural, aging-related decline in our ability to form and retrieve new episodic memories, those unique, personal recollections tied to specific times and places. This gentle decline underscores the profound importance of understanding and cherishing the processes of association, for they are the very engine of our continuous learning journey. Indeed, the acquisition of associations is the very basis for learning itself. It is the fundamental mechanism through which we gather knowledge and develop skills. And we see this foundational learning beautifully illustrated in two prominent forms of conditioning that have profoundly shaped our understanding of behavior: classical conditioning and operant conditioning. Let's first explore the insights offered by Edward Thorndike, whose pioneering research in this area led him to develop what he termed the law of effect. This law articulates a simple yet profound truth: that the associations formed between a particular stimulus and a subsequent response are deeply affected by the consequence of that response. Imagine this gentle principle at play. Behaviors that are followed by a reward tend to increase in strength and/or frequency. This occurs because, internally, an association is created between the specific behavior and a mental representation of that reward. Think of it not just as a physical outcome, but as an internal map, linking the action to the anticipated positive feeling or sensation. For instance, if you learn that a certain action leads to a pleasant taste or a comforting sensation, your mind subtly strengthens that connection. Conversely, if a behavior consistently results in a negative consequence, its frequency tends to decrease. The mind, in its infinite wisdom, learns to avoid paths that lead to discomfort. A negative association is forged, silently signaling to us to steer clear. Thorndike illustrated this with a simple, vivid example. Picture a rat within a cage, equipped with a small lever. If, upon pressing this lever, the rat receives a food pellet, a reward, it quickly learns to associate the action of pressing the lever with the gratifying outcome of receiving food. The behavior becomes stronger, more frequent. However, if pressing that same lever were to result in a mild electric shock on the floor of the cage, the rat would, with equal swiftness, learn to avoid pressing it altogether. The negative association becomes a silent deterrent, guiding its future actions. This is the quiet, powerful essence of the law of effect, a universal principle shaping behavior through the invisible hand of consequence. Now let us delve into the fascinating realm of classical conditioning, perhaps one of the most widely recognized examples of a learned association, famously demonstrated by the physiologist Ivan Pavlov. The process of classical conditioning, though seemingly complex, can be gently broken down into four key elements. Like pieces of a puzzle forming a coherent picture: an unconditioned stimulus, UCS, an unconditioned response, UCR, a conditioned stimulus, CS, and a conditioned response, CR. At its heart, classical conditioning begins with a relationship that already exists, naturally, without any prior learning. This is the inherent connection between the unconditioned stimulus and the unconditioned response. Think of it as an innate reflex, a built-in reaction. For example, the very sight or smell of food, the UCS, naturally and automatically elicits salivation, the UCR, in a hungry animal. No learning is required for this connection to exist, it is simply there. The magic of classical conditioning begins when a second stimulus, something initially neutral, is repeatedly paired with this unconditioned stimulus. Over time, through this gentle repetition, the original unconditioned response becomes associated not only with its natural trigger but also with this newly introduced, secondary stimulus. This secondary stimulus then earns its new title, the conditioned stimulus, and its power is such that it can now, on its own, elicit a conditioned response, a response that closely mirrors the original unconditioned one, but is now a product of learning. As the learning process unfolds, with the consistent pairing of the CS and the UCS, the strength of the response to the conditioned stimulus gradually increases. The association deepens, becoming more firmly entrenched in the mind, like a path becoming more defined with each step taken upon it. However, this association is not immutable. It can also diminish if the conditioned stimulus is repeatedly presented without its unconditioned counterpart. If the bell rings many times without the food ever appearing, the dog will eventually learn that the association is no longer valid, and the conditioned response will wane. This phenomenon, known as extinction, is a testament to the mind's continuous ability to adapt and refine its internal maps. Pavlov's famous experiment provides the perfect illustration. He observed the natural, unconditioned response of dogs salivating, UCR, at the sight of food, UCS. He then introduced a neutral stimulus, the sound of a bell, CS. Repeatedly, he paired the ringing of the bell with the presentation of food. Over time, a remarkable shift occurred. The dogs began to salivate, CR, at the mere sound of the bell, even without any food in sight. This indicated, beyond doubt, that a powerful association had been established between the bell and the food, a silent, internal bridge built by experience. Moving from the reflexive world of classical conditioning, let's now gently transition to operant conditioning, where the focus shifts slightly, yet profoundly, to the consequences of our own actions. In operant conditioning, behaviors are not simply caused by stimuli, as in classical conditioning. Instead, our behaviors are changed due to the experienced outcomes that follow those behaviors. This concept beautifully extends Thorndike's earlier law of effect, delving deeper into how consequences actively shape our choices. Here, the associations are created between a stimulus, perhaps the environment we are in, or a cue that suggests a certain action, and its subsequent consequence. It's a more active form of learning, where our actions, our operations, on the environment, determine what happens next. B.F. Skinner, another towering figure in psychology, dedicated much of his life to studying the profound impact of reinforcers on behavior. His meticulous studies introduced the crucial aspect of contingency, a delicate and precise connection between a specific action and the consequence or reinforcement that immediately follows it. It's the if this, then that principle in action, shaping our patterns of behavior. Skinner described three main types of contingencies, each designed to either promote or discourage a behavior. Let's gently explore them. First, we have reinforcements, which are mechanisms designed to create a positive association between an action and its consequence, thereby encouraging the continuation of that action. Reinforcements come in two forms, like two sides of a gentle coin. 1. Positive reinforcers *. These work by introducing a rewarding stimulus after a desired action. Imagine a warm, comforting feeling, a kind word, or a tangible treat. When a behavior is followed by something pleasant, the mind learns to associate that action with the pleasantness, making it more likely to repeat the behavior. It's about adding something good to strengthen a link. 2. Negative reinforcers. These operate by removing an aversive stimulus to make the environment less unpleasant, thereby also promoting the continuation of the action that led to the removal. Think of it as escaping from something uncomfortable. If a particular action helps you avoid or stop an annoying sound, a painful sensation, or an unwanted task, you are likely to repeat that action. It's about taking away something bad to strengthen a link, leading to a more serene state. Then, we have punishments. In contrast to reinforcements, punishments are designed to create a negative relationship between an action and its consequence, with the specific aim that the action does not continue. Punishments introduce an undesirable outcome, or remove a desirable one, in response to an unwanted behavior. The mind quickly learns to associate the action with the unpleasantness that follows, thus deterring its repetition. It's about establishing a clear, negative link to discourage a path. These contingencies, positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, and punishment, are constantly at play, silently shaping our habits, our reactions, and even our preferences, often without our conscious awareness. They are the unseen forces guiding the dance of behavior through the intricate web of associations. Finally, let us gently turn our attention to the subtle, pervasive influence of mood. Compared to the sharpness of specific emotions, feelings, or effects, the overall content of our moods tends to be less specific, more diffuse, and often beautifully global in its reach. While a strong emotion might be a sudden, pointed reaction to a clear event, a mood is more like the atmospheric condition of our inner world. The studies on mood reveal that while they are less specific, they are still very much likely to be provoked by a stimulus or an event. It might not be a clear, dramatic event, but a subtle cue, a fleeting image, a faint scent, or a particular sound. These gentle provocations can, through the power of association, shift our entire internal climate. There is a widely shared consensus in psychology that the core feature distinguishing moods from more specific emotions is their diffuse and global nature. An emotion might be a sudden burst of joy at a specific piece of news, or a sharp pang of anger at an injustice. A mood, however, might be a general sense of contentment that washes over you, or a melancholic cloud that lingers, coloring all your perceptions without a single, identifiable trigger in the immediate moment. Yet these global states are often born from associations. Consider the insightful, albeit controversial, experiments of Watson. In a famous scenario, a white, fluffy rabbit was introduced to an infant. Through a process of learned association, a connection was deliberately created between the gentle, soft presence of the rabbit and a sudden, loud, jarring noise. This pairing, repeated a few times, forged a powerful link. Soon, the mere sight of the rabbit, even without the noise, began to evoke a powerful response in the infant, a response of fear, distress, or anxiety. This wasn't just a specific emotion directed at the rabbit. It was a broader, more pervasive state, a negative mood that enveloped the child in the presence of similar soft, white objects. This example beautifully illustrates how a specific, learned association can give birth to a more diffuse and global mood state. A single stimulus, through its association with a past experience, can color your entire perception, enveloping you in a feeling that transcends the immediate moment. Perhaps a certain type of music, through long association with a comforting memory, instantly brings about a sense of peace and relaxation, allowing your shoulders to soften and your breath to deepen. Or the smell of freshly baked bread, linked to childhood warmth, evokes a mood of serene nostalgia. These are the quiet wonders of association, dear listener. They are the invisible threads that weave the rich tapestry of our mental lives, shaping our memories, guiding our learning, influencing our behaviors, and coloring the very moods that define our internal landscape. As you drift deeper into rest, perhaps you can gently reflect on some of the associations that quietly shape your own world. No effort is needed, just a soft acknowledgement of these wondrous connections. May your sleep be peaceful, filled with the gentle connections that bring you comfort and serenity. Good night.